It is altogether against my will that I tell my reasons for opposing this contemplated invasion of the Antarctic, with its vast fossil hunt and its wholesale boring and melting of the ancient ice cap, to deter the exploring world in general from any rash and overambitious program in the region of those mountains of madness.
Some of the descriptive passages in At the Mountains of Madness seem to me to rank with the great geographical fantasies of literature. Actually, I think it's a painterly quality in that novel that you perhaps don't find so much in his other work.
It is one of those places where all of the different influences come together. The idea of you're trekking across the ice. It's quite horrible. It's Antarctica, and it is science fiction. It's about an incursion by aliens.
In the foothills of these towering cliffs, an expedition discovers the fossil remains of a pre-Cambrian race.
Found monstrous, barrel-shaped fossil of wholly unknown nature. In furrows between ridges are curious growths, combs or wings that fold up and spread out like fans. Arrangement reminds one of certain monsters of primal myth, especially fabled elder things in Necronomicon, supposed to have created all Earth life as jest or mistake.
One of the most horrific ideas was that the things that the scientists were studying started almost dissecting them. That is a revelation of intelligence and curiosity. The sense of curiosity these things had, leaving little trails around the equipment and so forth. That was what was so scary to me. Something terribly odd and horrifying chased these men out, and something that was supposed to be a fossil record is after them.
After the mysterious and utter annihilation of an advance team, the survivors of the unfortunate expedition discover a cyclopean city hidden among the peaks. There, they learn the tragic history of the star-headed Elder Things, their shaping of life on Earth, surviving war with other races of cosmic infinity, and falling prey to their slave race of Shoggoths, protoplasmic masses capable of molding their tissues into all sorts of forms.
In the 60s, there was the idea that aliens had come here and had kind of created the human race. But that idea really was old compared to what Lovecraft had dreamed up, which was the idea of these battling alien forces, on Earth, and that man ended up somehow inheriting this thing almost by default because these two major presences had sort of wiped each other out.
The old ones in Mountains of Madness are scientists. They were artists. They were architects. They are tentacled cucumbers with wings, but they are sentient, intelligent beings. And that sense of intelligence makes the evil at work in Lovecraft's stories much more intense.
At the Mountains of Madness also displayed two new reactions to the fictional unknowns: fellowship and empathy.
It's a real imaginative achievement for him to have seen these threatening beings in a warmer light. Eventually, he kind of fell in love with them. He'd been in love with them all along, actually.
The old ones, they may have been crinoid, pickle-shaped barrels with wings and starfishes for heads and a bad sense of humor, but they were men. But why is that? Because now they got the rebellious slaves the Shoggoths to worry about. So has Lovecraft seen a different group as the same as him because all people are equal, or he sympathizes with them as slave owners who are now on the run from an even weirder race? So I don't know what that means, really. Not so bad. There's the elitists like I am against the uppity bad guys.
I think there is a huge Lovecraftian influence and a huge At the Mountains of Madness influence on the first Ridley Scott Alien. The idea of a ship that essentially lands on a planet, and they find a derelict city-sized ship, dead denizens in it, and something that is very much alive and waiting, and then takes over the humans. That's essentially, you could say, very much At the Mountains of Madness. It has influenced the story that The Thing was based on, which was a direct ripoff of At the Mountain of Madness. So I think its repercussions are very cinematic.
This was the crowning jewel of the Cthulhu mythos.
It was the city I had known before. The ancient, leprous town where mongrel throngs chant to strange gods and beat unhallowed gongs in crypts beneath foul alleys near the shore. The rotting, fish-eyed houses leered at me from where they leaned, drunk and half-animate, as edging through the filth I passed the gate to the black courtyard where the man would be. The dark walls closed me in, and aloud I cursed that I had ever come to such a den. When suddenly a score of windows burst into wild light and swarmed with dancing men, mad, soundless revels of the dragging dead, and not a corpse had either hands or head. It is a certain hour of twilight glooms, mostly in autumn, when the star wind pours down hilltop streets, deserted out of doors but showing early lamplight from snug rooms. The dead leaves rush in strange, fantastic twists, and chimney smoke whirls round with alien grace, heating geometries of outer space, while Fomalhaut peers in through southward mists. This is the hour when moonstruck poets know what fungi sprout in Yuggoth, and what scents and tints of flowers fill Nithon's continents, such as in no poor earthly garden blow. Yet for each dream these winds to us convey, a dozen more of ours they sweep away. Deep in my dream, the great bird whispered queerly of the black cone amid the polar waste, pushing above the ice sheet lone and drearily, by storm-crazed eons battered and defaced. Hither no living earth-shapes take their courses, and only pale auroras and faint suns glow on that pitted rock, whose primal sources are guessed at dimly by the elder ones. If men should glimpse it, they would merely wonder what tricky mound of nature's build they spied. But the bird told of vaster parts, that under the mile deep ice shroud crouch and brood and hide. God help the dreamer whose mad visions show those dead eyes set in crystal gulfs below. From Leng, where rocky peaks climb bleak and bare, under cold stars obscure to human sight, there shoots at dusk a single beam of light whose far blue rays make shepherds whine in prayer. They say, though none has been there, that it comes out of a pharos in a tower of stone, where the last elder one lives on alone, talking to chaos with the beat of drums. The thing, they whisper, wears a silken mask of yellow,
whose queer folds appear to hide a face not of this earth, though none dares ask just what those features are which bulge inside. Many in man's first youth sought out that glow, but what they found, no one will ever know.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness. It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely that I was somewhat south of the equator. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous. When at last I awakened, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. And suddenly I saw it, with only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface. The thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I had indistinct recollections of a great storm. At any rate, I knew that I heard peals of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. Often I ask myself if it could not have all been a pure phantasm. But ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling, floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind, of a day when the land shall sink, and the dark ocean floor shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. In the winter of 1930, the dreams began. They were very sparse and insidious at first, but increased in frequency and vividness as the weeks went by. Great, watery spaces opened out before me, and I seemed to wander through titanic, sunken porticos and labyrinths of weedy cyclopean walls, with grotesque fishes as my companions. Then the other shapes began to appear, filling me with nameless horror the moment I awoke. But during the dreams they did not horrify me at all. I was one with them, wearing their unhuman trappings, treading their aqueous ways, and praying monstrously at their evil sea-bottom temples. Some frightful influence, I felt, was seeking gradually to drag me out of the sane world of wholesome life into unnameable abysses of blackness and alienage. For the present, they would rest. But someday, if they remembered, they would rise again for the tribute great Cthulhu craved. The tense extremes of horror are lessening, and I feel queerly drawn toward the unknown sea deeps instead of fearing them. I hear and do strange things in sleep, and awake with a kind of exaltation instead of terror. I do not believe I need to wait for the full change as most have waited. If I did, my father would probably shut me up in a sanitarium as my poor little cousin is shut up. Stupendous and unheard-of splendors await me below, and I shall seek them soon. La Rouille, si huiha fulgagnal hidla. No, I shall plan my cousin's escape from that Canton madhouse, and together we shall swim out to that brooding reef in the sea, and dive down through black abysses to the Cyclopean and many-columned Yina Nithler. And in that lair of the deep ones we shall dwell amidst wonder and glory forever. There had been eons when other things ruled on the earth, and they had had great cities. Remains of them were still to be found as Cyclopean stones on islands in the Pacific. They all died vast epochs of time before men came, but there were arts which could revive them when the stars had come round again to the right positions in the cycle of eternity. They had indeed come themselves from the stars, and brought their images with them. These great old ones were not composed altogether of flesh and blood. They had shape, but that shape was not made of matter. When the stars were right, they could plunge from world to world through the sky, but when the stars were wrong, they could not live. But although they no longer lived, they would never really die. They all lay in stone houses in their great city of Rouille, preserved by the spells of mighty Cthulhu, and they could only lie awake in the dark and think, whilst uncounted millions of years rolled by. They knew all that was occurring in the universe, for their mode of speech was transmitted thought. Even now they talked in their tombs, when, after infinities of chaos, the first men came. The great old ones spoke to the sensitive among them by molding their dreams, for only thus could their language reach the fleshly minds of mammals. The time would be easy to know, for then mankind would have become as the great old ones, free and wild and beyond good and evil, with laws and morals thrown aside, and all men shouting and killing and reveling in joy. Then the liberated Old Ones would teach them new ways to shout and kill and revel and enjoy themselves, and all the earth would flame with a holocaust of ecstasy and freedom. In the Elder Time, chosen men had talked with the entombed Old Ones in dreams, but then something happened. The great stone city, R'lyeh, with its monoliths and sepulchres, had sunk beneath the waves, and the deep waters, full of the one primal mystery through which not even thought can pass, had cut off the spectral intercourse. But memory never died, and the high priests said that the city would rise again when the stars were right. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die.
It is only with vast hesitancy and repugnance that I let my mind go back to Lake's camp and what we really found there, and to that other thing beyond the mountains of madness. I am constantly tempted to shirk the details, and to let hints stand for actual facts and ineluctable deductions. I hope I have said enough already to let me glide briefly over the rest. I have already repeated the non-committal story we told the men at camp. It is now my terrible duty to amplify this account by filling in the merciful blanks with hints of what we really saw in the hidden transmontane world. Hints of the revelations which have finally driven Danforth to a nervous collapse. I wish he would add a really frank word about the thing which he thinks he alone saw, even though it was probably a nervous delusion, and which was perhaps the last straw that put him where he is. But he is firm against that. All I can do is to repeat his later disjointed whispers about what set him shrieking as the plane soared back through the wind-tortured mountain pass after that real and tangible shock which I shared. This will form my last word. If the plain signs of surviving elder horrors in what I disclose will not be enough to keep others from meddling with the inner Antarctic, or at least from prying too deeply beneath the surface of that ultimate waste of forbidden secrets and inhuman, eon-accursed desolation, the responsibility for unnameable and perhaps immeasurable evils will not be mine. Certain things were not for people to know and discuss lightly, and I would not speak of them now but for the need of heading off others at any cost. It is absolutely necessary for the peace and safety of mankind that some of Earth's dark, dead corners and unplumbed depths be let alone, lest sleeping abnormalities wake to resurgent life, and blasphemously surviving nightmares squirm and splash out of their black lairs to newer and wider conquests.